dreamer. Get comfy. Let the world fade away. Tonight, we travel to a forest that remembers every dream ever dreamed. Let's begin. In the bustling city-state of Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers embraced each other in an eternal dance, a peculiar incident occurred that would forever alter the course of human expression. The year was 3200 BCE, and the Sumerian civilization stood at the forefront of human achievement. Their ziggurats piercing the heavens like ancient stairways to the gods. It was within this sophisticated society, amidst the clay tablets and cuneiform inscriptions, that history's first documented eye roll took place. The setting was the grand temple complex of Aurora, where scribes diligently recorded every aspect of daily life, from grain inventories to celestial observations. Among these meticulous record keepers was Enkidu, a young apprentice scribe whose keen eyes had already begun to show signs of weariness with the endless documentation of trivial matters. His mentor, the venerable scribe Zabardi-Marduk, was particularly renowned for his exhaustive approach to record keeping, often spending hours debating whether a particular sheep should be classified as slightly brown or moderately beige. The day began like any other, with Enkidu dutifully copying inventory lists under Zabardi-Marduk's watchful gaze. The sun cast long shadows through the reed windows, creating intricate patterns on the baked clay floors. Merchants bustled about the marketplace, their voices rising above the rhythmic scratching of styluses on wet clay. In the distance, workers could be seen hauling bricks for yet another expansion of the city walls, their synchronized movements echoing the organized chaos that defined urban life in ancient Mesopotamia. As midday approached, the air grew thick with heat and anticipation. Important dignitaries were expected from neighboring city-states to discuss trade agreements and territorial disputes. These meetings always brought increased pressure on the scribes, who would be required to document every word spoken and every gesture made during the negotiations. Enkidu, having witnessed dozens of these diplomatic gatherings, had developed a growing sense of ennui with the predictable posturing and elaborate rituals that accompanied such events. The stage was set for what would become a momentous occasion in human communication, though no one present could have anticipated the significance of what was about to occur. As the delegation entered the main hall, resplendent in their ceremonial robes and adorned with precious metals, Enkidu found himself staring at yet another procession of pompous officials making exaggerated gestures of greeting. It was in this precise moment, caught between duty and disillusionment, that something unprecedented happened. Something so subtle yet revolutionary that it would eventually transform how humans expressed skepticism and exasperation across millennia. The cultural context of this moment cannot be overstated. In a society where every action held deep symbolic meaning, where priests interpreted omens in animal entrails and kings claimed divine right through elaborate ceremonies, even the smallest deviation from established norms carried immense weight. The act of rolling one's eyes, while seemingly insignificant by modern standards, represented a radical departure from the rigid protocols governing facial expressions and body language in formal settings. As we delve deeper into this historical account, it becomes crucial to understand how this simple gesture emerged from the complex tapestry of Sumerian social conventions. The eye roll didn't materialize in isolation. Rather, it evolved from centuries of refined communicative practices, where every raised eyebrow or pursed lip could signal allegiance, respect, or defiance. What made this particular instance remarkable was its spontaneous nature and the subsequent reaction it provoked. Reactions that would ripple through generations, shaping how future societies would interpret and utilize this powerful nonverbal cue. Enkidu's position as a junior scribe in the temple complex of placed him squarely within the hierarchical labyrinth of Sumerian bureaucracy. Each morning, he would rise before dawn to prepare the day's writing materials, carefully selecting the finest clay tablets and ensuring his stylus was perfectly sharpened. His mentor, Zabardi Marduk, had been grooming him for years to take over the important role of official record keeper. But Enkidu's youthful spirit often chafed against the restrictive protocols of his position. The daily routine followed a strict pattern. Enkidu would begin by transcribing agricultural reports, moving methodically from grain counts to livestock tallies. Every detail mattered, from the number of barley sheaves stored in the granary to the precise shade of wool produced by the temple flocks. Zabardi Marduk insisted on documenting everything, believing that the gods see all, and so must we. This philosophy extended beyond mere practicality into the realm of spiritual obligation, where incomplete records were considered an affront to divine order. During diplomatic assemblies, Enkidu occupied a position near the corner of the main hall, strategically placed to observe both participants and proceedings without drawing attention. He had mastered the art of appearing attentive while allowing his mind to wander, developing a repertoire of subtle distractions to maintain his sanity during particularly tedious discussions. Sometimes he would mentally compose verses about the market vendors' colorful stalls, or imagine himself exploring distant lands mentioned in merchants' tales. Zabardi Marduk, however, remained ever vigilant. The master scribe in his late 50s, he wore his station with pride, his beard meticulously oiled and braided according to rank. His eyes, sharp despite their age, missed nothing, not the flicker of a merchant's hand during price negotiations, nor the slight hesitation in a diplomat's speech. He believed wholeheartedly in the sanctity of written records, viewing them as sacred bridges between mortal affairs and divine judgment. Their relationship embodied the classic dynamic between tradition and innovation. Zabardi Marduk represented the accumulated wisdom of generations, while Enkidu symbolized the restless curiosity of youth. Where the elder saw importance in every detail, the younger recognized patterns of redundancy. When Zabardi Marduk waxed poetic about the cosmic significance of recording exactly how many goats passed through the city gates each day, Enkidu privately wondered if perhaps some details could be safely omitted. The pressure mounted during high-profile diplomatic events, when visiting dignitaries would engage in elaborate displays of protocol. Enkidu found himself increasingly frustrated by the artificiality of these performances. He watched as representatives from rival city-states exchanged precisely measured bows, their gestures calibrated to convey just the right amount of respect without appearing subservient. The accompanying speeches followed equally predictable patterns, filled with flowery language and veiled threats wrapped in diplomatic niceties. What truly tested Enkidu's patience were the internal politics of the temple hierarchy. As a promising young scribe, he attracted the attention of various factions vying for influence. Some elders sought to recruit him as a protege, while others viewed him as a threat to their established power structures. This political maneuvering added another layer of complexity to his already demanding position, forcing him to navigate delicate social waters while maintaining his primary duties as a record keeper. Despite these challenges, Enkidu continued to excel in his work, driven by a genuine appreciation for the craft of writing and a deep-seated desire to prove himself worthy of his mentor's trust. Yet beneath this professional dedication simmered a growing dissatisfaction with the rigid constraints of his role. The constant requirement to suppress personal opinions and maintain absolute objectivity began to feel suffocating, especially during moments when common sense screamed for acknowledgement of obvious truths hidden behind layers of diplomatic subterfuge. This tension between duty and individuality came to a head during preparations for the upcoming diplomatic assembly. The visiting delegation from Uruk had announced their intention to present an exceptionally detailed proposal regarding water rights along the Euphrates. Zabardi Marduk responded by assigning Enkidu the task of preparing an extensive series of tablets to document every possible permutation of the discussion. As Enkidu labored over these preparations, he couldn't help but feel that the entire exercise bordered on absurdity, a feeling that would soon find unexpected expression in a manner neither he nor anyone else could have predicted. The great hall of the temple buzzed with anticipation as the delegation from Uruk processed in solemn formation, their ceremonial garments shimmering under the filtered sunlight. Enkidu stood at his appointed station, stylus poised above a freshly prepared clay tablet, watching as the ritual greetings unfolded with practiced precision. High Priestess Enkiduana presided over the proceedings from her elevated throne, her presence commanding complete deference from all present. As the chief negotiator from Uruk began reciting the opening invocation, Enkidu's attention drifted momentarily to the intricate carvings on the temple pillars. They depicted scenes of past diplomatic triumphs, each carefully documented and preserved for posterity. His gaze returned to the speaker just as the man launched into an elaborate description of the weather conditions during his journey to Orb, information that, while traditionally included in diplomatic records, seemed particularly excessive today. It was at this precise moment, as the envoy transitioned from describing cloud formations to elaborating on the exact number of steps taken between rest stops, that something extraordinary occurred. Enkidu felt an involuntary twitch in his upper eyelids, a physical manifestation of his mounting frustration with the endless minutiae. His eyes, heavy from hours of meticulous transcription, began to move upward in a slow, deliberate arc, and then, almost imperceptibly, They rolled back downward in a complete circle. The movement lasted barely a second, yet it contained multitudes. Centuries of pent-up exasperation, generations of unspoken criticism, and decades of stifled individuality coalesced in that single gesture. Had it been anyone else in the room, the eye roll might have gone unnoticed, but fate decreed that High Priestess Enkiduana, known throughout the land for her acute observational skills, should happen to glance in Enkidu's direction at that exact instant. Time seemed to freeze, as Enkiduana's eyes locked onto Enkidu's face. Her expression remained neutral, but the slight tightening of her fingers around her ceremonial scepter betrayed her reaction. The room fell silent, save for the soft rustle of silk as courtiers turned to follow their leader's gaze. Even the verbose delegate from Uruk paused mid-sentence, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Enkidu, realizing too late what had transpired, froze in his position. His stylus hovered uselessly above the tablet as he attempted to process the magnitude of his transgression. In a culture where every facial expression carried potential religious significance, where even a poorly timed blink could be interpreted as disrespect to the gods, his spontaneous eye roll represented an unprecedented breach of protocol. Mentor Zabardi Marduk, standing nearby, reacted with remarkable speed. His initial shock gave way to calculated damage control as he stepped forward, positioning himself partially in front of Enkidu, while maintaining respectful distance from the High Priestess. "Your Holiness," he began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Perhaps our young scribe has been affected by the heat of the day. Shall I fetch him refreshment?" But Enkiduana raised a hand to silence him, her eyes never leaving Enkidu's face. The assembly held its collective breath as she rose from her throne, her movements deliberate and measured. She descended the steps leading to the main floor, her ornate headdress catching the light with each step. Courtiers and delegates alike pressed themselves against the walls to make way for her approach, creating a corridor of tense anticipation. When she reached Enkidu's position, she stopped mere inches away, studying him with an intensity that made his previous discomfort seem trivial. "Young scribe," she said finally, her voice carrying through the hushed chamber. "What is this gesture you have presented to us?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications far beyond its simple wording. The room erupted into whispered conversations, each participant trying to interpret the unprecedented event. Elder scribes exchanged worried glances, their hands reflexively reaching for fresh tablets to document the incident. Diplomats from Uruk leaned toward their interpreters, seeking explanations for this strange behavior. Even the temple guards shifted uneasily, uncertain whether to intervene in what appeared to be a profoundly significant moment. Enkidu's heart pounded as he struggled to formulate a response. Never before had anyone needed to explain their own unconscious actions, let alone ones that carried such profound cultural implications. The weight of thousands of years of tradition pressed down upon him, demanding justification for a gesture that had emerged spontaneously from the depths of human emotion. As the seconds stretched into minutes, the reality of the situation began to sink in. This wasn't merely a momentary lapse in decorum. It was potentially a watershed moment in human communication. The very fact that everyone present recognized the need for explanation demonstrated the gesture's inherent communicative power, a power that transcended established protocols and spoke directly to shared human experiences of frustration and skepticism. The High Priestess's next words would determine whether this moment became a cautionary tale, or the birth of a new form of expression. All eyes remained fixed on Enkidu, waiting to see how he would navigate this unprecedented challenge to the boundaries of acceptable behavior in one of the most formal settings imaginable. The days following the eye roll incident transformed the temple complex into a cauldron of speculation and analysis. High Priestess Enkidu Anna, demonstrating characteristic prudence, ordered immediate sequestration of all witnesses for intensive questioning. Scribes worked tirelessly to produce multiple accounts of the event, each version subjected to rigorous cross-examination by senior priests. The resulting documentation filled entire rooms with clay tablets, creating what would later be known as the Archive of the First Skepticism. Among the scribes, reactions varied dramatically. Veteran record keepers like Zabardi Marduk viewed the incident with grave concern, interpreting it as a potential harbinger of societal decay. Younger apprentices, however, began surreptitiously practicing the gesture in private, finding in it a powerful outlet for their own frustrations with bureaucratic excess. This generational divide manifested in heated debates during meal times, with arguments extending into the night as oil lamps burned low. The diplomatic community responded with equal parts intrigue and alarm. Representatives from Uruk initially demanded Enkidu's immediate dismissal, citing irreverence during formal proceedings. However, other city-states saw opportunity in the situation. Delegates from Lagash proposed establishing a committee to study the gesture's implications, while those from Nippur suggested incorporating it into formal diplomatic protocols as a standardized signal of dissent. The resulting diplomatic impasse paralyzed negotiations for weeks, with each faction attempting to claim interpretive authority over the unprecedented event. Within the temple hierarchy, the incident sparked fundamental questions about the nature of divine observation and human expression. Senior priests convened emergency sessions to determine whether the eye roll constituted blasphemous communication with unseen forces or merely a physical manifestation of earthly emotions. Astrologers scoured celestial records for portents that might explain the emergence of this new form of expression, while diviners sacrificed countless sheep in search of divine guidance. Perhaps most significantly, the incident catalyzed a broader examination of Sumerian social protocols. Scholars began cataloging other instances of suppressed emotional responses throughout recorded history, creating a new branch of study focused on nonverbal communication. This academic pursuit, initially met with resistance from traditionalists, gradually gained legitimacy as evidence mounted for the universality of certain physical responses to frustration and skepticism. The marketplace reflected these societal tensions through increased sales of eye remedies and protective amulets, as citizens debated whether the gesture might invoke supernatural consequences. Street performers incorporated exaggerated versions of the eye roll into their acts, attracting crowds eager to witness this controversial expression in controlled settings. Artisans began producing figurines depicting various stages of the gesture, which quickly became popular collectibles among the elite. Legal scholars found themselves overwhelmed with requests to establish guidelines for appropriate use of the gesture. Temples across Mesopotamia received petitions asking for official rulings on its acceptability in different contexts. The debate extended to educational institutions, where instructors argued about whether students should be taught to recognize and decode this new form of nonverbal communication. Most remarkably, the incident prompted a re-evaluation of historical records. Scholars began revisiting ancient texts, searching for previously overlooked descriptions of similar gestures. This retroactive analysis led to the discovery of several ambiguous references that might indicate earlier instances of eye rolling, sparking intense debate about whether Enkidu's gesture truly represented a unique moment or merely the first documented instance of a pre-existing phenomenon. As these various threads of investigation intertwined, they created a complex web of interpretation surrounding the original incident. What had begun as a spontaneous expression of frustration had evolved into a catalyst for widespread cultural introspection, challenging established norms and prompting fundamental questions about the nature of human communication and its relationship to divine order. The eye roll incident rapidly evolved from a localized controversy into a pivotal moment of cultural transformation, exposing deep divisions within Mesopotamian society. Traditionalists, led by the influential scholar-priest Nabu-Kudurri-Usur, argued that the gesture represented a dangerous erosion of established social hierarchies. Their position found support among the temple priesthood and conservative elements of the merchant class, who feared that legitimizing such spontaneous expressions might undermine centuries of carefully cultivated social order. On the opposing side, reform-minded intellectuals gathered around the charismatic philosopher-scribe Iltani of Larsa, who saw in the eye roll an opportunity to redefine human expression. This group, comprising primarily younger scholars and innovative thinkers, pointed to the gesture's universal appeal and its potential to enrich communication beyond rigid formalities. They published treatises arguing that the eye roll, properly understood, could serve as a valuable tool for honest discourse, particularly in situations where direct verbal criticism might be imprudent. The debate reached fever pitch when both factions presented their cases before the High Council of Nabu-Kudurri-Usur's arguments centered on precedent and divine order. Citing numerous historical examples where unchecked emotional expression had led to social unrest, his supporters distributed illustrated scrolls showing hypothetical scenarios of chaos should the gesture gain widespread acceptance. Images of courtrooms disrupted by coordinated eye rolls, temples desecrated by disrespectful visitors, and marketplaces devolving into expressive anarchy. Iltani countered with a compelling argument for evolutionary adaptation in human communication, drawing upon ancient myths and contemporary observations. She demonstrated how non-verbal cues had always existed alongside formal protocols, serving essential functions in human interaction. Her followers circulated clay tablets featuring careful studies of facial expressions across different social contexts, arguing that the eye roll simply represented a natural progression in this ongoing development of expressive capabilities. The disagreement manifested in practical ways throughout daily life. Traditional markets in older districts of Ur maintained strict prohibitions against visible displays of skepticism, while newer commercial areas openly embraced the gesture as a mark of authenticity. Temple complexes split into factions, with some maintaining absolute bans on the expression while others designated specific chambers where controlled demonstrations could be studied and analyzed. Artistic communities found themselves uniquely positioned to explore these divisions. Sculptors began incorporating subtle eye movements into their works, creating pieces that could be interpreted differently depending on viewers' perspectives. Performers developed elaborate routines based on variations of the gesture, using timing and context to communicate complex messages without uttering a word. This artistic exploration proved particularly effective in bridging the gap between opposing viewpoints, as even staunch traditionalists found themselves appreciating the technical skill involved in executing perfect eye rolls. The schism extended into family dynamics, with generational divides becoming more pronounced. Parents found themselves struggling to explain to children why certain expressions were unacceptable in public, while simultaneously dealing with their own subconscious adoption of the gesture in private moments. Educational institutions faced unprecedented challenges, as teachers grappled with how to address the phenomenon in classrooms without either endorsing or condemning it outright. Perhaps most significantly, the controversy revealed underlying tensions about the nature of truth and authority in Sumerian society. Those supporting the traditional view tended to emphasize the importance of maintaining surface harmony, while reform advocates argued for the value of authentic expression, even when uncomfortable. This philosophical divide influenced everything from legal proceedings to religious ceremonies, forcing institutions to reconsider fundamental aspects of their operations. The economic impact of the debate proved surprisingly significant. Artisans specializing in eye care products reported unprecedented demand, while manufacturers of face coverings and protective eyewear saw their businesses flourish. Tavern owners capitalized on the controversy by hosting expression salons where patrons could practice and discuss various forms of nonverbal communication, including but not limited to the eye roll itself. As the debate continued, it became clear that the incident had tapped into deeper currents of social change. The eye roll had become more than just a physical gesture. It represented a battleground for competing visions of human interaction and social organization. Whether it would ultimately be accepted as a legitimate form of expression or condemned as a dangerous aberration remained an open question, but its impact on Mesopotamian society was undeniable, touching every aspect of daily life and forcing individuals to confront fundamental questions about how humans communicate and relate to one another. The theological implications of the eye roll reverberated through Mesopotamian religious institutions with unprecedented force. Chief diviner Shamash Nasir began conducting elaborate ceremonies to determine whether the gesture represented communication with benevolent spirits or summoned malevolent entities. His team of astrologers meticulously charted celestial alignments corresponding to instances of documented eye rolls, creating complex diagrams that purported to show correlations between planetary positions and the emergence of skeptical expressions. High Priestess Enhediwana herself initiated a series of sacred investigations, commissioning special rituals to discern divine will regarding this new form of expression. Temple archives reveal that she personally oversaw the creation of divine response tablets, specially prepared clay surfaces designed to capture any supernatural manifestations triggered by controlled demonstrations of the gesture. Priests conducted these experiments in isolated chambers, recording every minute detail of atmospheric changes, animal behavior, and subtle vibrations in temple structures during each trial. The pantheon of Mesopotamian deities provided multiple interpretations for scholars to consider. Followers of Enki, god of wisdom and cunning, argued that the eye roll exemplified divine inspiration manifesting through human physiology, a gift from the god of knowledge to enhance human communication. Conversely, devotees of Nergal, associated with plagues and war, warned that the gesture might inadvertently invoke destructive forces, pointing to historical accounts of epidemics following periods of widespread social unrest. Perhaps most intriguing was the emergence of a new cult dedicated to the Watchful Ones, a previously minor divine aspect associated with peripheral vision and subtle perception. This movement, gaining surprising traction among younger temple initiates, posited that the eye roll represented humanity's first conscious attempt to align with these lesser-known deities. Their rituals involved synchronized eye movements performed in darkened chambers, accompanied by chants designed to attune practitioners to divine frequencies. Theological debates spilled into the streets as wandering priests and street philosophers engaged in public discourse about the gesture's metaphysical significance. Market squares became impromptu lecture halls, with crowds gathering to hear argue about whether the eye roll represented a physical manifestation of divine skepticism, an unconscious channeling of ancestral spirits, a purely human expression requiring divine approval, a forbidden doorway to demonic influence. Temple artists contributed to the discussion by creating elaborate murals depicting various divine interpretations of the gesture. One particularly famous fresco in the Temple of Ur shows Ishtar, goddess of love and war, responding to an eye roll with both amusement and contemplation, suggesting a complex divine perspective on human expression. Another panel illustrates Nabu, god of writing, recording instances of the gesture with apparent interest, hinting at divine sanction for documenting this new form of communication. Astrological schools developed specialized branches devoted to studying the eye roll's cosmic significance. Their calculations produced elaborate theories connecting specific star constellations to varying intensities of skeptical expression. These studies led to the creation of expression charts, used used by temple astrologers to predict favorable times for practicing controlled eye movements and identifying periods when such gestures might carry heightened spiritual risk. The integration of the eye roll into religious practice proved particularly contentious. While some temples began incorporating modified versions of the gesture into purification rites, others declared it strictly taboo during sacred ceremonies. This division led to the establishment of separate worship spaces, with expressive chambers designated for controlled experimentation and sacred silence halls maintained for traditional practices. Perhaps most significantly, the incident forced religious authorities to confront fundamental questions about divine human communication. If the gods communicated through omens, dreams, and natural phenomena, did human expressions like the eye roll represent a new form of two-way communication? Could mortals, through physical gestures, influence divine attention or intervention? These questions challenged centuries of established theological doctrine and opened new avenues for understanding the complex relationship between human expression and divine will. As the theological discourse deepened, it became clear that the eye roll had touched something fundamental in Mesopotamian spiritual consciousness. Whether viewed as divine inspiration, demonic temptation, or purely human innovation, the gesture had irrevocably altered the landscape of religious thought, forcing priests, scholars, and believers to reconsider basic assumptions about how humans interact with the divine realm. The ripples of Enkidu's fateful eye roll spread far beyond the borders of Mesopotamia, influencing civilizations across the ancient world in ways that would shape human expression for millennia. Archaeological evidence from Akkadian tablets reveals how neighboring cultures adapted and transformed the gesture to suit their own social contexts. The Elamites, known for their diplomatic sophistication, developed a nuanced system of partial eye rolls, where the degree of rotation corresponded to specific levels of skepticism, creating what scholars now term the Elamite scale of skepticism. Egyptian records from the Old Kingdom period document the arrival of Mesopotamian traders bearing news of the controversial gesture. Egyptian scribes, intrigued by its potential applications in court politics, began experimenting with vertical eye movements that better suited their hierarchical society. These adaptations eventually evolved into the distinctive Egyptian eye lift, a subtle upward glance that conveyed both respect for authority and quiet doubt, often employed during pharaohs' audiences. In the Indus Valley civilization, archaeological findings suggest a fascinating divergence in the gesture's evolution. Rather than adopting the full circular motion, Harappan traders developed what appears to be an abbreviated version, a quick flick of the eyes upward and inward, accompanied by a slight tilt of the head. This variation, depicted in numerous seals and pottery fragments, seems to have served as a discreet signal among merchants during negotiations, allowing them to communicate skepticism about prices or trade terms without offending their counterparts. The transmission of the eye roll westward followed established trade routes through Anatolia and the Aegean. Minoan frescoes from Troces depict court ladies employing a graceful, flowing version of the gesture during ceremonial functions, suggesting that the expression had been incorporated into formal court etiquette. Linear B tablets from Mycenaean Greece contain early references to the looking away, indicating that Greek speakers had developed their own terminology for describing related expressions of disbelief or disapproval. Perhaps most remarkably, Chinese oracle bones from the Shang dynasty period bear markings that scholars interpret as references to a similar gesture, described as heavenward gaze of doubt. While the exact nature of this connection remains debated, some researchers propose that Silk Road traders may have carried knowledge of the Mesopotamian incident eastward, where it merged with existing traditions of facial expression in Confucian court protocols. Chinese adaptations emphasized restraint and subtlety, focusing on minimal eye movements that could convey complex messages within strict social hierarchies. The gesture's journey southward through the Arabian Peninsula left traces in early Semitic languages, where root words related to eye movements began appearing in contexts suggesting skepticism or doubt. These linguistic developments would later influence Hebrew and Arabic expressions, contributing to rich vocabularies describing various forms of visual communication. Notably, early Jewish texts contain references to the eye that turns, often associated with prophetic insight or divine questioning, suggesting that the gesture had acquired spiritual significance in these cultures. In Africa, particularly along the Nile Valley trade routes, variations of the eye roll appear in Nubian art and inscriptions. These depictions show a distinctive double roll technique, where eyes moved first eftward, then outward, possibly indicating different degrees of skepticism or disapproval. Anthropologists suggest that this modification may have developed as a way to communicate across language barriers in multicultural trading centers. The spread of the eye roll also influenced artistic expression across civilizations. Mesopotamian cylinder seals began incorporating stylized representations of the gesture, which traveled with traded goods and inspired local artisans to create their own versions. Persian metalwork from later periods shows elegant renderings of figures with partially rolled eyes, suggesting that the expression had become a recognized motif in decorative arts throughout the region. These global adaptations demonstrate how a single moment of spontaneous expression could transcend its original cultural context, evolving into diverse forms that reflected both universal human experiences and distinct societal needs. The eye roll's journey through time and space serves as a testament to humanity's capacity to adopt, adapt, and transform non-verbal communication, creating a rich tapestry of expressive possibilities that continue to influence human interaction to this day. The first recorded eye roll stands as a testament to humanity's enduring quest for authentic expression within structured societies. What began as a moment of spontaneous frustration in ancient Ur evolved into a complex phenomenon that continues to shape human communication across cultures and eras. Modern psychological studies reveal that the eye roll activates specific neural pathways associated with skepticism and critical thinking, suggesting that Enkidu's unplanned gesture tapped into fundamental aspects of human cognition that transcend historical and cultural boundaries. Contemporary research in nonverbal communication has identified over 40 distinct variations of the eye roll, each carrying nuanced meanings shaped by cultural context and social circumstances. Neuroscientists working with advanced imaging technology have discovered that the gesture triggers unique patterns of brain activity, particularly in regions associated with social processing and emotional regulation. These findings confirm that Enkidu's inadvertent expression accessed deeply ingrained human mechanisms for conveying doubt and skepticism. In today's digital age, the eye roll has found new life through emojis and animated GIFs, demonstrating its remarkable adaptability to changing modes of communication. Social media platforms report millions of uses of eye roll-related expressions daily, indicating that humanity's need to communicate skepticism and exasperation remains as strong as ever. Linguists note that internet slang terms like eye roll and side-eye represent modern extensions of this ancient form of expression, proving that Enkidu's legacy persists even in our technologically advanced society. The incident's impact extends beyond mere communication patterns, influencing fields as diverse as psychology, sociology, and cultural anthropology. Researchers studying human development have identified the emergence of eye-rolling behavior in adolescence as a crucial stage in the development of critical thinking skills, suggesting that the gesture plays an important role in cognitive maturation. Sociologists point to the eye roll's persistence across millennia as evidence of humanity's fundamental need to express skepticism within social hierarchies, regardless of technological or cultural advancements. Perhaps most significantly, the eye roll's journey through history demonstrates how small, seemingly insignificant moments can catalyze profound cultural transformations. From its origins in a Sumerian temple to its current status as a globally recognized form of expression, the gesture exemplifies humanity's ability to evolve and adapt communicative tools in response to changing social needs. Its continued relevance speaks to fundamental aspects of human experience that remain constant despite vast technological and cultural progress. Modern education systems now incorporate studies of nonverbal communication, including the historical development of gestures like the eye roll, recognizing their importance in comprehensive communication skills. Business schools teach executives to recognize and appropriately respond to various forms of eye movement in international negotiations, acknowledging the gesture's persistent influence in professional settings. Even artificial intelligence developers program virtual assistants to interpret and respond to digital representations of eye rolls, ensuring that this ancient form of expression maintains its place in human-computer interaction. The story of Enkidu's eye roll serves as a powerful reminder that human expression evolves through a combination of spontaneity and cultural adaptation. What began as an act of teenage rebellion in ancient Mesopotamia has become an integral part of human communication, demonstrating that even the smallest gestures can carry profound significance. As we continue to develop new forms of expression in our increasingly connected world, the legacy of that moment in O reminds us that authentic human communication often emerges from the most unexpected places, bridging millennia and transforming the way we connect with one another. The enduring legacy of Enkidu's eye roll also manifests in the way it has influenced modern cultural norms and societal expectations. In contemporary workplace, educational institutions, and social settings, the gesture continues to serve as a powerful tool for expressing skepticism, frustration, or disbelief without resorting to verbal confrontation. Its universality lies in its ability to convey complex emotions succinctly, making it an indispensable part of human interaction that transcends language barriers and cultural differences. In the realm of popular culture, the eye roll has achieved iconic status, becoming a staple in films, television shows, and literature as a shorthand for conveying characters' inner thoughts and emotional states. Writers and directors often employ the gesture to add layers of subtext to dialogue, allowing audiences to infer deeper meanings behind spoken words. From Shakespearean actors delivering subtle eye rolls during soliloquies to modern sitcoms relying on exaggerated versions for comedic effect, the gesture has proven its versatility across artistic mediums. Psychologists and communication experts have further explored the evolutionary significance of the eye roll, suggesting that it may have roots in primal survival mechanisms. The upward movement of the eyes, they argue, could be linked to early humans scanning their surroundings for threats or seeking divine intervention during moments of doubt. This interpretation aligns with ancient Mesopotamian beliefs about the gesture's potential connection to celestial observation and divine communication, bridging prehistoric instincts with sophisticated cultural practices. The global adaptation of the eye roll has also given rise to fascinating regional variations that reflect local values and social hierarchies. In Japan, for example, the gesture is often more restrained, aligning with cultural norms that prioritize harmony and indirect communication. Conversely, Mediterranean cultures embrace a more expressive version, using exaggerated eye movements to convey strong emotions openly. These adaptations highlight how universal expressions can be tailored to fit specific cultural contexts while retaining their core communicative function. Educational research underscores the role of the eye roll in adolescent development, where it frequently emerges as a form of non-verbal rebellion against authority figures. Studies show that teenagers use the gesture not only to express frustration but also to establish peer group identity and assert independence. This pattern mirrors Enkidu's original act of defiance against established protocols, suggesting that the eye roll serves as a rite of passage in human social development. Moreover, the gesture's integration into digital communication platforms demonstrates humanity's capacity to adapt traditional forms of expression to new technological landscapes. Emojis such as and animated GIFs, capturing various stages of eye rolling, allow users to convey complex emotions instantly, maintaining the gesture's relevance in an era dominated by rapid-fire text-based interactions. This digital transformation has even led to the creation of specialized fonts and visual effects designed to capture the nuances of eye movements, ensuring that the gesture remains accessible in virtual spaces. The business world has embraced the eye roll's communicative power, incorporating it into marketing strategies and brand messaging. Advertisements often feature subtle eye rolls to signal relatability or shared frustration with common consumer experiences, creating instant connections with target audiences. Corporate training programs teach employees to recognize and appropriately respond to client eye rolls during negotiations, emphasizing the importance of understanding nonverbal cues in professional settings. Philosophers and sociologists continue to debate the broader implications of the eye roll's persistence throughout history. Some argue that its enduring popularity reflects humanity's fundamental struggle between conforming to social norms and expressing authentic emotions. Others view it as evidence of our species' ongoing negotiation between individuality and collective order, suggesting that gestures like the eye roll serve as safety valves for releasing social tension without disrupting established hierarchies. Perhaps most intriguingly, the eye roll's journey through time reveals how seemingly trivial moments can spark profound cultural transformations. What began as a spontaneous expression of frustration in ancient era has evolved into a complex phenomenon that touches every aspect of human society, from interpersonal relationships to global diplomacy. Its continued presence in our daily lives reminds us that human communication is constantly evolving, adapting ancient tools to meet modern needs while preserving essential elements of our shared experience. As we look to the future, the story of the first recorded eye roll offers valuable insights into how human expression will continue to evolve in response to technological advancements and shifting social dynamics. Virtual reality environments, artificial intelligence systems, and augmented reality interfaces will undoubtedly require new adaptations of this ancient gesture, ensuring that its legacy endures in increasingly sophisticated forms. Whether expressed through physical movement, digital representation, or yet-to-be-invented modes of communication, the essence of Enkidu's momentary rebellion will persist, a testament to humanity's enduring need to balance conformity with authenticity, tradition with innovation, and structure with spontaneity. In conclusion, the first recorded eye roll stands as a remarkable milestone in human history, demonstrating how a single, seemingly insignificant gesture can ripple through time and space, shaping cultures, influencing societies, and transforming the way humans connect with one another. From its origins in ancient Mesopotamia to its current status as a globally recognized form of expression, the eye roll exemplifies the power of nonverbal communication to transcend boundaries, bridge generations, and articulate the complexities of human experience. As we continue to navigate an ever-changing world, this simple yet profound gesture reminds us of our shared humanity and our infinite capacity for creative expression.